Welcome to the Befrienders training on managing calls. This is a key module in your Befrienders training program using the befriending approach on how we as befrienders provide support to our callers. The training will introduce the methodology of how to handle calls in a way that will support the caller at their time of need and hopefully provide them with the clarity to allow them to find their own solution to the issues that are confronting them. This befriending approach is what all befrienders are expected to follow and adheres to the Befrienders Charter that guides our aims, objectives, and policies as befrienders. It is also important to realize that this approach may not be natural to the way we may handle a caller needing help. So it's up to all trainees to learn the befriending approach and to adopt it through diligent practice. This video presentation should be watched with a video presentation on active listening skills, where some of the techniques mentioned in this presentation are explained in greater detail. Techniques such as questioning, paraphrasing, clarifying, and communication styles. The learning outcomes for this video presentations are that we'll be able to understand the stages of managing a call when befriending. Very important, how to build trust and rapport with the caller. Know what is the focus of befriending approach, SLOFAS, which is the core to what we do. How to properly end calls. And we will end with a review of the guidelines for managing calls in befriending. When managing a call, there are 3 stages that we go through. At each of the 3 stages, there are specific activities. For example, the initial stage, we reach out to the caller when the call is answered. We build rapport and trust with the caller. We practice active listening. We use minimum encourages. We then have the middle and concluding stage to the call. And similarly, we have specific activities for each of these stages. All of these activities in the 3 stages are carefully designed so that we ensure engagement with the caller in a way that will provide the best chance for a successful call. Let's start with the initial stage where we reach out to the caller. How we start a call and what we say will ensure that the first impression with the caller is the right one. We want to start off well with the caller and that they feel that they've called the right place for support. We pick up after 3 rings. This is to allow us, the befriender, and the caller to prepare mentally to start the caller engagement and to avoid a sense of rush to start the call. We greet the caller. The tone of voice must be calm and welcoming to invite the caller to be comfortable to engage. We introduce ourselves with our SAM name. For example, 3 rings, good afternoon, Befrienders Penang. This is James speaking. When we answer, the caller may give us a number of responses. They are usually unprepared on what they want to say, just that they need to talk to somebody. Here are some starters that callers may say at the start of the call. When you hear this, how do you feel? What should you say after this? This is important to know and to practice as it will set the stage for the conversation with the caller to follow. Let's do an exercise. For each of these, write down on a piece of paper how you feel when you hear this, what you should say after this. Stop the video while you're doing this and start again once you've finished. I don't know what to say. You could say, take your time. Perhaps we could start with how you're feeling at this moment. It's complicated. Perhaps you could start and tell me how you're feeling now. What motivated you to call us? Perhaps you could start somewhere at the beginning or some background first. I don't know if I should tell you this. Share what you are comfortable with at this moment, but we are a confidential call support line, and what you say will be treated with the strictest confidence. I'm too shy and embarrassed to tell you. Share what you're comfortable with at this moment, but we are a confidential call support line, and what you say will be treated with the strictest confidence. At some point, the caller may not have told you their name. You may want to ask it. For example, you may say, "My name is James. How may I address you?" Addressing them by their name is more personal, and they can feel more connected and engaged in the call. If they don't want to give it, assure them that it's okay. Building rapport and trust is a crucial step in the call. Without rapport and trust, the caller will not open up to the befriender, and that will make it more difficult for the befriender to effectively support the caller. Understand that when the caller calls you for the first time, he or she is talking to a complete stranger, somebody they've never met and cannot see. In building rapport, we remember that our objective is to empathize with the caller. Let them build trust in us as befrienders. We follow our promise of being non-judgmental, non-political, non-religious, that we treat all calls as private and confidential, and that all our befrienders are trained. When we respond, we build trust with communication, patience, respect, sensitivity. Our tone of voice must be calm, serious, but welcoming. Our pace of speech is slow, not rushed. Choice of words are used are caring and engaging. How are you? How are you feeling today? Is something troubling you? We use minimum verbal encouragements to ensure that the caller is encouraged to most of the talking, that we use silence to provide the caller space to speak. Give the caller time to start opening up. We want to empower them to determine the agenda for the call. Ultimately, we want to provide support by actively listening and to explore the feelings of the caller. To encourage the caller to talk, we practice minimum encourages. These are, yes, go on, tell me more. The objective is to encourage the caller to speak, to encourage the caller to continue to speak, to give the caller permission to speak, to show we are listening, to acknowledge what the caller has said. At the initial stage, what we can say to the caller is, "It's okay to cry. I trust you. How do you feel?" Why we don't say, "I understand," because we cannot, as we are not in their shoes, and if we have not explored their feelings, we will never understand how they feel. We don't use why, because it comes across as challenging and may drive the caller to be defensive. And we don't say, "May I help you?" because most likely we can't. We don't know their full situation to even begin to know what kind of help they need. And we are not in a position to give help when they're expecting. For example, "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm in debt with the along. You can come and help. Can you give me 80,000 ringgit? My father is always scolding and hitting me. Can you come and talk to him? I'm so far behind in my schoolwork. Can you come and help me finish some?" Let's recap the initial stage. We start by reaching out when the call is answered in a professional way. We create a safe space for the caller by building rapport and trust to openly discuss the issues they have and share their feelings. Understand barriers of communication will help to ensure it does not hamper the engagement for the caller and the befriender. Active listening to encourage the caller to talk. Please watch the video presentation on active listening skills. For the initial stage, the skills involved are warm tone of voice, pace of speech, choice of words, minimum encourages. The middle stage is when the safe space has been created and now we can guide the caller to express themselves about their feelings and source and build awareness and clarity. We do this by exploring and reflecting feelings using SLOFAS. We will explain this later in the presentation. We clarify and paraphrase. We reflect content and feeling. We use open-ended questions rather than closed-ended questions. Look at this image of this lady trying to use the washing machine and finding it broken. Let's do an exercise on a piece of paper. Write down all the questions to ask somebody with a broken washing machine. Stop the video while you're doing this and start again once you finish. What are the questions you've written down? Are they about the lady or are they about the problem she's having with the washing machine? If we focus on the problem the lady's having, for example, we will ask her about her washing machine. What is the problem she's having with the washing machine? What has she tried to do and the outcome? We ignore the caller and how she is. When we focus on the caller, we talk about the problem from the viewpoint of how they feel. We are there with the caller, the person. For the washing machine lady, we're not there to help with the problem. If so, we should be fixing the washing machine, in the process, ignoring the person. We are there to understand how she feels: annoyed, frustrated, disappointed, upset. By expressing her feelings, she may be able to address those feelings and move to a position to look at options to resolve the issues related to her feelings. So, when we answer the call, we ask ourselves, what do we know about the caller? What feelings have they described? How are we going to explore the caller's feelings? How, as befrienders, will we engage the caller and focus on their feeling so that they can begin to address those feelings? It may be her feelings may not be related to the washing machine, but on something else causing her distress. Hope you can see the difference between problem focus and person caller focus. In the middle stage, we want to be exploring the feelings of the caller. But to understand better and to get a more complete picture, we also need to explore other areas, exploring feelings now and getting some background to how long she's had this feeling, exploring issues, what happened, exploring needs, what level hierarchy of needs, remember what you learned in self-awareness, exploring wants, what does she want, exploring expectations. What is the caller's expectations towards the issue, person that's bothering her? We may want to focus on feelings, but it's important to get some background to the feeling for a complete picture. Remember, our core business is to provide emotional support. We do this by active listening and exploring feelings of the caller. Let's do an activity here. On a piece of paper, write down what are the feelings expressed in this paragraph. Once you've completed it, write down what you think are the hidden or underlying feelings that are not expressed. Stop the video while you're doing this and start again once you've completed. The expressed feelings are angry, upset, disappointed. The possible hidden feelings may be low esteem, feeling stupid, lack of confidence, lonely, insecure. As befrienders, we need to identify the underlying feelings as much as possible. We will provide you some aid to help you do this. With experience, you'll be able to develop your own capabilities in doing that. Here is an example of a feelings chart that expresses feelings and some underlying feelings behind it. You will have this in your resource workbook. When managing calls, we employ a number of techniques to engage the caller and effectively support them in their time of need. They may be used at any of the stages, but primarily at the middle stage when we're exploring feelings of the caller. They are acknowledging and reflecting feelings, paraphrasing, clarifying, when we focus on the person and not the problem, and when we use open-ended questions. This will be discussed in greater detail in a video on active listening techniques. The focus of the befriending approach is to explore feelings of the caller. We do this as feelings affect our thoughts, which affect our behavior. Oftentimes, when we start exploring feelings, the caller may not even be aware of their own feelings. It is for us to ask how they feel and try to identify them if help is needed. We need them to acknowledge their feelings and reflect it back to them. As an example, I can sense some guilt in you. You have done your best, but you're feeling unappreciated. Identify the feelings of the caller and reflecting it back to them makes them feel that they are listened to, that we're able to empathize with them. It is also important to remember as befrienders, we need to employ the 6-step formula of SLOFAS, which stands for specific labeling of feelings and source. For SLOFAS, specific labeling of feelings and source, we use a 6-step formula. We identify all the surface feelings ventilated: angry, sad, disappointed. Determine the underlying feelings: hurt, jealousy, resentment. Clarify the priority and focus on the main feeling. There'll be many feelings. We can ask the caller, "You've told me many feelings, correct me if I'm wrong, but I sense that you are hurt." Be specific with focused feelings. Label that feeling. Feeling hurt. Verify the source of that feeling. Maybe a need that has not been fulfilled. Respond naturally using the befriending way. Let's look at some examples now. Here's an example of SLOFAS. Tom came home last night and said that we are moving to another town. We've lived here for 10 years and I've made some very good friends down here. The initial feeling may be surprise, shock, and confused. The underlying feeling may be one of sadness, disappointment, and feeling powerless. The main feeling may be sadness. The source of the feeling is that you are leaving your friends and they have become a part of you and your life. Another example. Whenever I try to tell somebody about my really deep concerns, things I do feel deeply about, I always feel that they don't want to hear about them. If I get the slightest hint that they aren't listening, I change the subject rather than continue. And then later I get mad with myself for not saying what I really wanted to. Initial feeling might be angry and frustration. Underlying feelings may be one of rejection, neglect, insignificance. The main feeling may be one of rejection and insignificance. The source of the feeling may be a lack of self-worth. Here's another example. I really have trouble talking to my parents. Every time I try to tell them what's bothering me, they act as if they don't want to hear it, like I'm just being a pain in the ass. I guess they will not even notice if I'm here or not. Well, I'm a nobody. No one's going to miss me when I'm gone. The initial feeling may be dismissed, unvalued, unheard. The underlying feeling may be one of frustration, rejection, insignificance. The main feeling may be one of insignificance. The source of the feeling could be not being loved by the parents. Paraphrasing is an important aspect of active listening. It demonstrates active listening. When the befriender paraphrases the caller's statement, you show that you're actively engaged in the conversation and genuinely trying to understand their perspective. It encourages the speaker to continue sharing their thoughts and makes them feel heard. It also provides clarification, as paraphrasing allows the befriender to clarify your understanding of the caller's message. By restating their words in your words, it gives them the opportunity to confirm or correct your interpretation. This helps to avoid misunderstanding and ensures that both of you are on the same page. For the caller, hearing their ideas paraphrased by someone else can provide an opportunity for self-reflection and raising self-awareness. Paraphrasing will be covered in more detail in our active listening video. As with paraphrasing, clarifying is a critical aspect in active listening. With clarifying, we ask for illustrations, repeat what has been said, clarification of what has been said. Clarifying confirms understanding and establishes facts. It encourages the caller to expand on points. It encourages the caller to look within themselves at their own feelings. It builds rapport and trust by showing that you are listening and wanting to understand what is being said. Clarifying too is covered in more details with examples in the active listening video. As in the washing machine example earlier, befriending is not problem-centered, but person-centered. No matter how tempted we are, we must resist the temptation of trying to solve the caller's problem, even if the caller asks us to. We don't know all sides of the story. We don't know all the considerations of the caller. We are not heroes. We are not the caller. To recap the middle stage, what we do is focus on the caller, explore feelings by using SLOFAS, clarify, reflect feelings, paraphrase, use open-ended questions and not closed-ended questions. Don't try to solve problems, and using deflecting questions to focus on the feeling and issues at hand. After the middle stage, we reach the concluding stage where we complete the befriending process. At this stage, we summarize the call. The caller then explores options if they want. The caller is now empowered, and they will then end the call. If the call has gone well and the caller has come to an awareness about their feelings and their source, they will hopefully be empowered to then look at the options and decide what they want to do without the support of the befriender, which is also what we want. Let's look at the process of concluding in greater detail and the techniques we may employ. Shown here are 4 steps which may be employed when necessary. We start by summarizing all that has been said around the feelings of the caller and the issues related to them. And we prioritize these feelings and issues if there are more than one. We explore options with the caller if necessary and ask what the caller intends to do next. And then we end the call if the caller is ready to do so. We will now discuss each of these steps in greater detail. Summarizing is a powerful technique to bring together strong emotions that the caller has told us about and presenting it back to the caller in a summary. It can help the caller to see things much clearer with the issues in the full context of things. So see the woods rather than the trees. The skill in using what the caller has said so that they might get a much clearer picture of where they are rather than us putting our version of their words. Remember, the caller comes to us confused with many things on their minds and many thoughts and emotions running through them. If we can calm them, focus on voicing their emotions and its sources, and clearly state their issues back to them, it can bring a level of clarity and awareness to them and a sense of empowerment to decide and act. If there appears to be many issues here, we will need to prioritize them to address which of these the caller wants to discuss first. We do this by asking the caller which issue they would like to speak about the most. This often helps the caller feel less overwhelmed. It's more difficult to sort out our problems when we are faced with a plate full of them rather than a single one first. We could ask, which issue would you like to speak about first? Which is most important to you? What would you like to focus on? If it helps, we can then sort out the issue by type, interpersonal, intrapersonal, home life, etc. Sometimes the issues may be interconnected. Intrapersonal may be related to personal problems, to financial problems. It is important to deal with the issue related to their feelings. If the caller is now clear and aware, they may be empowered to address their plans going forward themselves. However, if they want to talk about it with us, we could explore what plans the caller has. We don't suggest ours, but we ask theirs. What plans do you have going forward? What have you tried already? What have you thought of doing? Together, we'll talk through the problem. Let's make a list of things you wish to do. Which one could you do? What could be stopping you from doing what you wish? If you could do anything, what would you choose? How have you tried to cope in the past? Help the caller make a list of actions they will do. They can call us again to tell us how it went. When we feel that the caller has progressed to a concluding stage, we can try to bring the caller back to the present. We give the caller the opportunity to explore a strong emotion in light of what has been previously said. You spoke earlier about how desperate you felt. How desperate are you feeling now? They will be in a better position to take charge when they feel they have overcome the emotion that was weighing heavily on them earlier. In bringing them back to the present, we summarize the action plans for the caller by assuring the caller that he can make his own decisions. Encourage the caller to be responsible for their own decisions. Respect their decision even if we disagree. They most likely know more than we do when it comes to that decision. Remember, we are there to support the caller, not to solve their problems or force our solutions or suggestions onto them. Ending the call. Who ends the call? The caller ends the call. The befriended can hint at the end of the call by summarizing the call or asking if there's anything else the caller would like to talk about. How long should we stay on the phone for? As long as the call appears to be still active. If the call seems to be not progressing or going round in circles and the caller is not in any danger, you might suggest if the caller would like to think about things and call back. Would that help? Why do callers stay on the phone for a long time? Usually either because they have a lot to unload and they're not finished yet, or they're feeling lonely and need to speak to somebody. Make the caller feel they can call again by saying, "So glad you called. Please call again when you feel you would like to speak to somebody." Ways of saying goodbye. You could say, "So glad you called. Please call again when you feel you want to speak to somebody. Take care." Let the caller hang up first. As befrienders, what we don't do is give advice. Why don't we give advice? We only know what the caller has told us. We do not have the full picture, so we cannot know what is best. We can't know what is right for the caller, even if we may think we do sometimes. Any advice we give is from our perspective on what we would and can do. Remember, it is always about the caller. If we give the wrong advice, the caller may lose trust in us and blame us. If the caller doesn't take our advice, they may feel guilty and feel unable to call us again. If we give the advice the caller wants and it works, they may become dependent on us and feel unable to make any decision without us telling them what to do. If the caller asks for advice, avoid phrases like, I can't give advice. I'm only here to listen. These sound too negative and may make the caller feel there's no point in talking to us. If the caller, despite everything, insists we give advice, then we could use phrases like, I can't really know what's right for you. We can discuss and explore your different options and how these might make you feel. The final decision has to be yours. Third-party calls are calls from somebody worried about somebody else, a third party. Support the caller if necessary, as they too may need befriending. And if the third party may be the one at risk, find out as much detail as possible. Assess the reliability of the caller, the needs of the person at risk. In an emergency situation, agree on an appropriate action together with the caller, such as calling an ambulance, calling a relative, notifying a psychiatrist or a physician, or calling the police. Suggest to have the person at risk call befrienders. This may be more effective. Gatekeepers are callers who may be lawyers, police, insurance agents, psychiatrists seeking help for a suicide client. Not quite the same as a third-party call, as the gatekeepers are less likely to need support. Follow the same procedure as third-party calls. Do not reject such a call for support. Here is a recap of the stages of managing call. At the initial stage, we reach out to the caller when the call is answered in a way to build rapport and trust with the caller. We use the listening wheel, also known as the active listening techniques, and we use minimum encourages to allow the caller to talk. We then have the middle stage where we use the 6 steps of SLOFAS to identify and label feelings, surface and underlying, and their source. We do this by the various techniques of the listening wheel again, and we conclude by bringing the caller back to the present, summarizing what the caller has said, prioritize the feelings or issues, and identifying what the caller will do moving forward before ending the call. Here's a recap of the befriender's guidelines to managing calls. Treat every call as genuine. Be non-judgmental, non-political, and non-religious. Empathize, not sympathize with the caller. Encourage the caller to talk, then reducing their defensiveness. Do not chit-chat. Focus on feelings, not problems. Try to befriend before giving out third-party contacts. Do not disclose personal information, including of other befrienders. Do not disclose befrienders' duty roster. We will now do a role-play demonstration of a call. I'd like for you to note down what you hear as some of the managing calls active listening techniques used. The befriender. Good afternoon, Befrienders Penang here. My name is John. Who am I speaking to? The caller. Hello, Befrienders. My name is Kay, and I would like to make some inquiries. Yes. What is it you'd like to know? If somebody wants to complain about a case of child abuse, where can they go to get help? Okay, hold on for a minute. and I'll get you the name of the organization that you can contact. How do you think the befriender did here? Could he have done better? Here are some of my observations. In the opening, the befriender tried to connect, being personal, with a warm tone, and began to build rapport. He immediately asked for the caller's name. That may be too direct and may put some callers on the defensive. In the second response, he used an open-ended question to find out more about what the caller wanted to know. In the third response, he immediately went to get the requested information. Sounds like he was on a problem-solving mode. Here is the same call, treated slightly differently. Befriender. Good afternoon, Befrienders Penang. Caller. Hello, Befrienders. I would like to make some inquiries. My name is John. How may I address you? My name is Kay. Kay, what is it you like to know? If somebody wants to complain about a case of child abuse, where can they go to get help? Kay, you sound very anxious. What seems to be the problem? Again, the befriender here started to connect, build rapport, was personal and respectful, but didn't ask for the caller's name initially. After the caller responded, the befriender then asked for the caller's name. The befriender then asked an open-ended question to find out more. The befriender allowed for silence. And in the final response, the befriender focused on the caller, trying to find out more about the caller's feelings by reflecting the caller's feelings and following up with an open-ended question. Continuing the call. Caller. It's actually my friend Sue. She thinks her husband is abusing her son Jason. He is 3 years old. Sounds like you're very concerned about your friend Sue. I really don't know what to do. What I hear you say is your friend Sue thinks her son is being abused by her own husband. You seem to care very much for Jason and you're very concerned about him. I don't know what to do. Jason's only 3 years old. Why should he be going through this? You feel it's very unfair and not right that a young child like Jason should go through this pain. It must be difficult not knowing what to do at this moment. I couldn't believe it. I had to talk to someone. You're very troubled and worried for Sue and Jason because Jason is being abused. Troubled? This is driving me mad. Jason is my son. I sense that this has come as a great shock to you, Kay. In the first response, the befriender identified feelings ventilated. He then paraphrased, reflecting the feelings. The next response, he empathized with the caller. He then reflected the feelings of the caller, and then finally again reflecting the feelings of caller of great shock. My husband Mike is abusing him. I don't know how to deal with this. Can you help me? I'm hearing you say your husband is abusing your son. Is that right? Yes. It must hurt you very much because you love both of them, and seeing your son hurt must be upsetting. My husband has been abusing me, and now my son. He's so innocent. It's very painful, and I sense you're feeling helpless and in despair too, when you see your son being beaten by the father. Yes, I want to seek help, but I'm scared of my husband. You're scared of your husband. What do you think may happen if you seek help, Kay? Initially, the befriender was clarifying. then reflecting and empathizing with the caller, then searching for the underlying feelings of what the caller is feeling now, helpless and in despair, allowing the caller to cry, and then reflecting and exploring feelings. He'll be very, very angry. He'll lock us up and beat my son more just to get at me. You're scared that if you seek help, your husband will abuse your son even more. Yes. Okay, what I'm hearing is on the one hand, you want to seek help, yet on the other hand, you are afraid your husband will find out and abuse your son even more. Yes. Okay, I'm wondering, what would happen if you don't seek help? I think it'll be even worse. I'm afraid my son will die in his hand. It's okay to cry, Kay. You are afraid if you seek help, your son will be abused even more. And if you don't seek help, you are afraid for the safety of your son. Did I hear right? The befriender paraphrased initially, then summarized what the caller was saying, then exploring options, what happens if they don't seek help, and then finally summarizing and clarifying. Yes, yes, I know. I owe it to my son and I love him very much. I want to protect him. I'll make sure that he is safe. Yes, yes. I want to make sure that he is safe. Can you tell me the organization I can contact? Okay. I can see you love your son very much and that you are brave and courageous to face your fears, to stand up to your husband. Here is the organization and their number you can contact. Thank you. It's good to get this off my chest. I'm feeling much better now. You're welcome, Kay. Glad you're feeling better. Whenever you need to talk to someone, please don't hesitate to call us again. Okay, I gotta go now. My son is just woken up. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye and take care, Kay. The befriender reflected feelings and gave affirmation, her being courageous and brave. The befriender then ended the call and said to call back if ever she needed to speak to somebody. We've come to the end of this video on managing calls. You've been given a series of multiple choice questions which we hope you'll take a few minutes to complete. If the questions highlight some points which you may have missed, we hope you'll revisit the video again or refer to the notes which you will also be given. If you have any other questions or are unclear about anything, note it down and bring it to our face-to-face training on this subject, which will be happening soon.